Chapter 4, Stabbed in the Back. Mrs. Needham returns our work by calling each student to her desk in the reverse order of how good you did. Getting called last is the best. Dolly Peaches, who is a roughneck, a hoodlum, and a boy, even with a name like that, has been called first every single time this year. I have been called last for every paper and test all of 6th grade. It's like what we say on the playground. First is the worst, second is the best, last is the best in any old game. Mrs. Needham picked up our final essays. I enjoyed learning about your families. We've had a slight change in our usual rankings today. Mr. Peaches, keep trying. Hope springs eternal. Dolly slouched up to her desk. It was a very short walk because Mrs. Needham keeps Dolly Peaches and Benny Cobb exactly 1 yardstick and one stretched out arm away from her. She said, "Young man, stand straight and pick up your feet when you walk, or I will leave you with a memory that will extend well into summer." Benny Cobb was next, and the roll call went on until it was down to me and my loving friend Clarice Ann Johnson. We looked across the room at each other and smiled. We each held up 2 fingers, touched our cheeks, and then held up 1 finger and put our hands on our chests like we were getting ready to say the Pledge of Allegiance. But we weren't. It's secret sign language for our motto. I thought up. 2 girls, 1 heart. Mrs. Needham said, "As usual, we're left with the ladies." I tried to look humble while I waited for Clarice to walk up and get second place, which is really just about as good as first place. Just about. Well, not really, but that is a kind and comforting thing to say to second place people. Then I remembered what Mrs. Needham said about a change. No, I'd worked extra hard on this essay. I watched her mouth, scared that something horrible was about to cross her lips. She said, and with an A minus, I fought the feeling that my whole world was about to collapse in a smoking heap. "Another excellent piece of work by," I prayed. "Oh, please say Clarice, please. She's used to getting second place. "Miss Deza Malone." The shame. I looked back over at Clarice and had to quickly turn my eyes away. It was bad enough that I hadn't gotten my usual grade, but it was even worse to see the crazy look on my loving friend's face when she knew that it was her and not me who did the best on the last assignment of the year. Clarice's mouth and eyes were wide open. She was being eaten alive by guilt already. I knew just how bad things had got when my second brain started talking to me. I'm different from most people, and one of the main reasons is I think I might have 2 brains. Whenever I get nervous or mad or scared or very upset, I have thoughts that are so different from my normal thoughts that there isn't any way they could be coming from just one brain. My first brain decides it doesn't want to know about what is happening and stops working. Then my second brain takes over, and that brain is always looking to start trouble, to hurt someone or break something. I felt myself rise out of my seat like a prisoner on her way to old Sparky, the electric chair. I had to bravely make that long walk to Mrs. Needham's desk. A walk once bright with sunshine and hope, but now choked with thunder, despair, and crabgrass. "Buck up, kiddo," the second brain said. "We won't be expecting a thing." Ooh, one of the main reasons I hate this second brain is that it always calls me kiddo. "Smile, kiddo," the bad brain said. "Get as close as we can." Clarice had covered her mouth with both hands. It was easy to see that she was grief-struck that something this terrible could happen to the next to last day of school. "Okay, kiddo, when she hands a paper to you, snatch her arm. We'll get 2 or 3 bites in before she can slap us off or call for help." I stopped in front of Mrs. Needham's desk. I held my breath, giving her one last chance to say, "Dear me, Miss Malone, I'm so sorry. I've made a terrible mistake. I should have called Clarice." Mrs. Needham looked right in my eyes, held my essay out, and said, "Very good job, Deza." Thank goodness. That woke up my first brain. It stopped me before anyone got bit. Very good job? Was she playing a joke on me? I looked at what was written in red on the top of the paper. There was a big A minus sitting there. My grade was supposed to be a A plus. How could Mrs. Needham, who I used to love like a grandmother, be so rude and uncaring to tell me, "Very good job," when I didn't even get an A? I floated back toward my seat. Most times I pretend I'm reading the back of the last page of my essay while I'm walking to my desk. That way, my classmates get a chance to see my grade and maybe will want to try harder the next time. This paper was a crinkled ball at my fist. Dolly Peaches, who's got enough teeth cramped into his mouth for a crocodile, a shark, and two regular full-grown people, whispered, "You ain't as smart as you think, huh? How's it feel to be number 2?" Benny Cobb snickered. "Deza's a number 2. Okay, kiddo, jump real high and drop a quick elbow into Dolly's left eye. Then do a sharp uppercut to Benny's jaw. They'll never see it coming." All there was left for me to do was quietly and with a bunch of dignity walk to my desk. I told myself, "Stop being silly, keep your chin up." But as soon as I sat down, my arms folded on my desk and my head thunked down. Mrs. Needham said, "And we close this year with another A for Miss Clarice Ann Johnson." I couldn't bear to look. Clarice would be unconsolable. I raised my head when I heard Clarice's gut-wrenching yips and yaps. I am so proud of that girl. Clarice had decided to pretend she was excited by jumping up and down. She hopped like a bunny to the front and gave our traitor teacher a huge hug. Clarice is such a champion. She was making sure our classmates took their mocking eyes off me and put them on her by waving her paper in the air and braying like a donkey. I loved her even more than I already had. Well, kiddo, I clenched my teeth so hard that the back ones started hurting. That's the only way to make that second brain quit talking. When it shut up, I laid my head back down on my desk. I'll probably be pondering what went wrong until I'm weak and weary.